everyone. I welcome you to yet another episode of Let's Talk Art. We have a very special guest today at our studio, an award winning artist, an architect, and a very famous author based in Los Angeles. He has been an architect and an architectural illustrator before becoming one of the fine artists, a great human being, and our very dear friend.
Thomas Schaller.
Hello, Thomas. Hi.
Hello, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much just for including me. I think everybody's going through a very difficult time around the world.
Exactly.
But it's great to know that there are other ways to communicate and to connect, because it's all about connections. So thank you for including me.
Thank you.
So Thomas, I would like to begin with your creative journey. Like how, and when did you actually begin? I mean, were you painting since childhood? How was your childhood?
I grew up in a very conservative household, like many people. Very religious, rural, on a farm. So anyway, art was not a big deal in my family. My grandmother loved art and always gave me books on paintings, great artists. Like a little secret of mine. I love these books so much. So I started to draw because I was also a very shy, quiet kid. So I wanted, just like this, I wanted always to communicate. So before I wanted to be an artist, I wanted to somehow figure out a way to be a storyteller, to speak non-verbally, if need be, with others. So I loved music, books, and paintings, but I never thought it a possibility to be an artist when I was very little. But by the time I was around 9, I had a secret ambition to become an artist. So I was having an argument with my mother and father, just something small. And I said, you know what? When I'm grown up, I'm going to move to New York City and become an artist. It stuck in my head, and it was true. It was the first time I actually realized, oh yes, this is what I want to do. So from that day on, I didn't know how, but that's what I wanted to do with my life.
Great.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Tell us something about your transformation from an architectural illustrator to a fine artist, because
yeah, it's what I liked to draw when I was that little kid. I would sit with my little sketchbooks, same as today.
Okay, can you show me your this beautiful drawing?
Just a sketch I was working on.
Wow.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Wow.
But these sketchbooks for me are my diary, I guess. If I'm happy or upset or in an airport or anywhere, I just
Quickly.
well, I don't think about trying to make great art or their ideas. So I just work out ideas. So this is what I did as a kid. But what I was most interested in drawing, I think, were different worlds where I thought I would live one day and be happier, in a child's way. So I would design cities under the sea and spaceships and, typical kid stuff. But I developed an interest in cities, imaginary cities, which is the same today. I still love imaginary cities. I think the imagination of cities informs the design and planning of real cities and how people want to live. So then when I became older, I did go to New York. I thought, oh, well, maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, I'll be a famous artist, no problem. No, not so easy. So I had started architecture school. I ended up going back, finished getting my degree, took all the tests, became an architect. I thought I had to have a job, but also I loved it. I did love it. And then I became an architect in an office, working for other.
Right.
I learned a lot, but what I wanted to do was draw. I was more interested in images of cities than actual buildings. So gradually I got working for developers and other architects doing drawing design. I chose watercolor because I loved it. It's a traditional technique from the Beaux-Arts days
Exactly.
of expressing architecture. But what I tried to do was bring that up into modernism so I could meld classicism and modernism together. And it was great. I lived in New York for many years doing this. I loved it. But eventually something was missing. And I think it was this, I was always painting other people's ideas, other people's visions, and I wanted to paint my own.
Yes.
So sorry for the long story, but
it's very interesting.
Famous artist Joseph Zbukvik.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved his work. He came to the U.S. 11 years ago.
Okay.
And I said, I'm just going to go. I'm going to go take his class. I painted, I had painted for 20 years, but I was very structured and very careful. I had some skills, but I wasn't very expressive. I went to class with Joseph, and Amit, Joseph, I think. You know how he
Everybody knows Joseph.
Yeah.
very, I love the man. He's very outspoken, though. After class one, I can be a little bit serious, but after class, we're sitting around talking, and Joseph turned to me and said, "You're a pretty good painter." Which is very high praise, I guess. And he said, "What do you want to do? What do you do?" And I told him my profession, and he said, "You don't seem so happy about that." And I said, "Oh, it's okay. But what I really want to do is be a real artist."
Right.
And he said, "Well, why don't you?" I have to pay for rent, and I have to buy health insurance, and I have to do this. And he said, "You know what? Shut up." He said, "Shut up. What do you?"
My God.
"If you want to paint, you will paint, and all the rest will work itself out." So he said, I thought at the time, wow, what a thing to say. But it's the best advice I ever got. He was right. It started me from that day forward thinking, oh, if you really want to do something, 10 years ago, last month, I think, 10 years ago, I entered my first art show, and my life changed. I've never looked back. It's been all the way up.
Great.
Yes. What a great journey. Yeah.
He did change my life. So he gave me the
push.
And I think everybody needs that sometimes. Just somebody to remind them, oh yeah, you can do what you want to do. If you work hard and you really want it, there's some way you can probably find some way to do it. But I thought, well, I've been painting for 20 years. How hard can it be to be a fine artist? That was the hardest thing I've ever done. Because I talk a lot about designing your paintings.
Yes.
Like an architect, I design my paintings. You design them by using building blocks of value and composition and color, light and dark, etc. Yeah, I think for anything to transcend technique and become art, you have to have a building block of emotion and expression.
Yes. Yeah.
I was missing that. I was too reserved. So it was difficult, to be honest. I had to be a little more honest, a little more open. I had to be willing to fail. I had to let others judge me, and they're not always very kind. But that's okay, you know. It's all part of the journey.
Yeah.
Right.
So being expressive was really tough for you.
I understood it, but I didn't know how to do it. And then I felt early on that if I'm going to be a good artist, I didn't ever want to paint like Joseph. I mean, who could? But what I wanted was to paint like me.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if I had an artistic voice or what it would look like or sound like. So that was the real work I had to do. I had to figure out, do I have a way that nobody else has to paint? And over the years, I've come to understand that, yes, but we all do. It's just a matter of finding it. You know,
Exactly. Right.
you have to look, I think, forward more than outward, but it's there for everybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
So why did you only choose watercolor as your medium? I mean, why only watercolor?
Or you do other mediums also.
You know, I did, after architecture, I took 4 years. I went back to art school. I studied sculpture. I imagined I'd want to be a 3D artist working in sculpture. I did enjoy it, but it didn't take. It didn't have an emotional resonance. I studied oil painting, same thing. It felt all, for me, it felt very technique based, but not. Of course, I understand it is. For other people, it can be. But it's just something about watercolor. From the minute I tried it, it just felt right. It felt like if you buy clothes and you buy a shirt and you think, oh, yes, this fits, it fits. So watercolor fit. I think what I love about it is that it is three-dimensional. You get to play with the layers of transparency and depth. And it's this beautiful illusion of three-dimensionality. The same thing I was after in architecture, the same thing I was after in sculpture. The illusion of depth and dimensionality. Even when I do a bad watercolor, I'm happy a little bit because it's fun. I feel better if they're not bad, but yeah, I like the process. I like Amit understands, but the simplicity of it. It doesn't take a lot to make a good watercolor. You have paint, water, brush, paper, and then everything else is extra. It doesn't take very much. And I like the simplicity of it. You can always make it more difficult and more complicated. I'm now, and have been for years, trying my best to take away, edit out. I do a lot of studies of religion and spirituality, especially Eastern, and a lot of it is about letting go and taking away. And when I look back at my old watercolors, I think they often fail because they're too many colors, too many brush strokes. And the beauty of watercolor is the power of the unpainted paper.
Exactly.
The power of what you don't paint is just as strong as the power of what you do paint. And that, I think, is the one thing that always gets me coming back. So to answer your question, I do paint sometimes in acrylic just for fun and to develop ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I paint in oil, but I don't anymore. It's just too much work for me. I draw, of course. I draw all the time. And I
Yes.
sometimes do composites of pencil drawing and watercolor together.
Drawing is in your blood.
It is. Others will disagree, I understand, but I think watercolor for me is an act of drawing. But rather than expressing yourself with a line, watercolor, you express yourself with a shape of light or dark or warm or cool color. But for me, it's
Exactly, right.
a natural extension of the act of drawing, which is where I started and still there.
Great. Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. You have juried a lot of competitions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I see that you have juried a lot of competitions. What differences do you see in the works of artists around the world? And I mean, do you think that something has changed over the years? I mean, the thinking process.
I do. A lot has changed.
Mhm.
The internet, obviously, has
Yes.
made the
Yeah,
world
true.
a much smaller place. In some ways, obviously, for bad, but in many ways, for the good. As I was that kid, all I had access to were art books. So they were curated art books. I rarely saw work from Asia or from Europe occasionally, but I mostly was exposed to American artists, which is okay. But as I got older and I became aware of the access I could get through the internet to look at great masters' works in
Yeah.
Europe and
Hmm.
in Asia, all around the world, wow. I mean, it's very humbling, obviously. It's very humbling. Then when I got to be in my 20s and I started traveling the world, I developed a complete passion for traveling because, well, for many reasons, but it expanded my knowledge and my appreciation of
Yes.
not just art, but of the way other people saw the world. And to me,
Mhm.
that's what art is. So when I first went to Asia, I went first to Japan, and I think that was the thing that impressed me most, that there are other ways to look at the world and therefore other ways to interpret what you see. And I feel badly for people who don't have that opportunity, so I feel very blessed.
Yes.
But yeah, jurying artwork is difficult. This coming year, I'm going to be on the AWS, American Watercolor Society. And
Yeah.
I'm honored to be asked, but oh, I don't like to be that guy that says no, yes, because I understand that there is no one right way to paint or to do watercolor or
Hmm.
anything. There are so many ways, and I have a hard time saying, "Oh, that's bad and that's good." But I try to be very fair and yeah. You didn't ask, but I think what I look for when I'm asked to be a juror is I'm not really won over by perfect technique. I'm impressed, and technique is great. But what I look for is the story, the idea, the expression. If that is there, technique almost doesn't matter too much. If
Exactly.
it's moderately good and you express the idea, that's what art is to me. So I think a lot of artists fall down. I teach a lot, of course, and I think in my student groups, it breaks my heart because I see students that just think, if I could just buy the right blue or buy the right brush, or I understand that that's not the answer. You know, those are just
Yeah.
starting to go somewhere else. So yeah, it's great, but it's difficult. It's a great question.
Wow, that was really, really opening. Yeah. Uh, I can see a lot of contrast in your work. I mean, light contrast, lines, the contrast in the
Right.
lines, the contrast in the colors, the contrast in light. So, I mean, what I am really eager to know what, according to you, are the most important elements in a painting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the feeling and the emotion you expressed, but except that, I mean, what are the elements you look for?
Well, briefly, I can talk too much. When I was young, I never said anything, and now I can't shut up. Um, I design my paintings with four main criteria.
Hmm.
First, the most important for me criteria is the intent. What's the artist's intent? So when I see something or somebody or some scene, or I have a dream or a memory that I want to paint, I ask myself, why? Why do you want to paint that and not that? What is it about that thing, that person? What is it? What is it that you see, feel, and what do you want to say to the viewer? So it's the intent, the story of your art. I don't like art that's too specific, tries to be political or editorial, or I want the viewer to be able to tell their own story, but by connecting in some way with the artist silently over the miles. So anyway, number one, what's the artist's intent? Second, how do you get that intent across? So the composition, you choose a horizontal or a vertical format for all kinds of reasons that I could talk about for days. Then you start to design the shapes of dark and light and
Yeah,
just general shapes. Third, value, 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 darks, lights.
yeah,
I love color, but I think for me, color can be a tripping
Hmm.
color. And if you don't have the values right, no color you use is going to save a bad composition. So last on my list of important elements is, well, it's idea, intent, composition, values, color. It's important, but for me, color supports value, value supports composition, composition supports your idea. That's
That's
what I,
perfect.
right.
Wonderful.
and why that happened is my favorite art when I was young and still were in America, probably the abstract expressionists. I love abstract art. I say if I live long enough, I will become an abstract painter, but at this rate, I'll have to be 200 years old. I don't think that's possible. But what I liked about them is they were able to strip away everything and get the emotional intent across. And also, they work so deftly, most of them, with dark and light. Then for technique, the European and Asian masters came into my realm later on, and I realized the importance of all of that. The Japanese woodblocks early on were very important to me. Obviously, European masters, Caravaggio, etc., the use of light. But still, at the bottom of it, it's all about light and dark and composition.
Exactly.
We love your drawings as much as your paintings. So, I mean, what is more closer to you?
Drawing or
Painting. I
painting?
mean, what is more closer?
Yeah, I would have said drawing always my whole life, probably until that I think painting is a natural extension of drawing for me. But I felt that I was best at drawing until a few years ago. And
Hmm.
I began to realize I'm not where I want to be with my paintings at all. I think I'm okay. I think I have a lot to learn, and I
Mhm.
have lots of space to improve, obviously. But something happened, and I felt more comfortable, I guess. So what I'm saying is, I always just felt more comfortable with drawing. It was like an old friend, or my dog, or a pair of shoes that you love, like a pair of old sneakers. It just felt good, and I was happy drawing. Painting was always a little bit stressful, and I felt like, oh, it's not working, it's not happening. And
Hmm.
something gradually started to change, and I realized I don't always do good paintings. No, I should show you the floor of my studio. There was a stack of failures. But I started to judge myself differently. I still judge
Hmm.
myself. I started to learn how to breathe and just realize, oh, it's okay. You screwed up, big deal. You start again. And then sometimes in that state where you make a mistake, you learn. A light comes on and you realize something you didn't know before. So I'm now more excited about painting than I ever have been because it's a different experience for me now. It's very joyful, very happy,
Hmm.
very genuinely connected to whatever creative energy I have. It's not always good, but that's okay. It always leads to something better.
Your books, oh, I love them. Your books are among the bestsellers. Yeah. Which one of your books or of some other author would you recommend? Which one book, I mean, would you recommend to our listeners, to our students?
Well, my book, of course.
Which one of your book and which one of some other authors? I mean,
I'm very proud of my last book, of course, but
Mhm.
here.
Oh
oh
yes.
yes, Architect of Light, yes.
However, this book is only 1 year old. I already look at the paintings in here and think, ah, I've learned so much just in the last 2 years. But, that's okay. But why I like this book is that it connects, it's less about me, I think, than it's about the process that we've been talking about here this morning, today, about stripping away judgment, stripping away expectations, and just trying to get in touch with your own artistic voice, finding your own way to look at the world. So yeah, that process is very important to me, and that's what this book is all about. Joseph's Bookvic has a book that's fairly old now. I think they've just done a reprinting that I
Mhm.
think is a must for most artists in watercolor to have, but it's
Exactly.
not sure how easy it is to find. But if I would recommend a book to any student, and I do in my classes, it's not even a book full of pictures, but it's by John Berger, who was a
Mhm.
philosopher, Words of Seeing. And he just talks about a lot of these things that I didn't really understand until later. You develop your own. There is no one right objective way to do anything. It's your own personal experiences form your way of looking at the world, and then
Right. Yes.
clarity and express to do it. And I find that book essential.
Okay, so the last question of this session: which artist of the past and the present you admire most?
Oh, such a big question.
Yes, this is a big question, but very important.
It is. Um, I have. I moved a couple of years ago, and I had 3,000 books, I think.
Oh, My God.
Anyway, I had to go through this process of trying to pick 100 books that I wanted to keep and get rid of. Artists that are living, it's hard to say which are the most, because it makes it sound like I think one is best and one is not best, and it's just
Yes.
Yeah.
like that. The artists that I most admire and keep going back to, the American abstract expressionist Mark Rothko,
Mm-hmm.
public understanding of and use of spirituality and light.
Mm.
I take a long time for me to understand how powerful his work is.
Mm.
And favorite artist, of course, Turner, very similar to Rothko in his understanding of the spirituality and power of light. Turner is kind of an obvious choice, but yeah, the more you look at his work, he had a deep understanding of classical drawing and expression, but he went way
True.
beyond his life. And I admire that. I would like to emulate that evolution in my own work. So yeah, if we were just sitting having drinks, I could tell you all the great artists living today.
That's great.
You're sitting next to one, so I, like everybody else, I go on the internet and books and I just study people's art, and it's so inspiring to be able to do that.
So I think it was very, very lovely to have you here on our show and to listen to an inspiring journey of such a wonderful artist. We have been looking your works. I mean, since many years, I am,
Absolutely.
been going through your pages, your Instagram, Facebook, all social media.
No, I'm everywhere.
I think everyone will enjoy listening to your journey, and yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Really,
Bye.
really thanks a lot, my friend. And it was a wonderful session and really very inspiring story.
Yeah, I would, tell my viewers that whatever you have, I mean, what do you like about this episode? Please do let us know in the comment section, and you are all free to give the suggestions and to share. Do share this wonderful episode of the Master.
Thank you guys so much. I hope I get to see you in the real world down the road.